Hello, this is Kara from Kara Tarot. As promised, I'm doing a little discussion and comparison of two different decks by Etteilla. And I'm starting off with these little birds here. Why? Because we need to talk about how to say his name. Now, people in America want to say Etteilla, or some version like that. And they want to say his original name as Aliette. Now, it's good to say Aliette for clarity purposes, so you understand that Etteilla is Aliette reversed. But that's not how you say his name. Double L's in French form a Y sound. So his name in French would be Ayette. I'm not a French scholar, but I do speak some French and I'm a Francophile. Um, a little bit of knowledge can go a long way wrong. But here's my example. Is a lot of us in school, if we learned any French, we learned the children's song, Alouette, gentille alouette, alouette, je te plumerai la tête, et le plumerai la tête, et la tête, et la tête, alouette, alouette. All that to say, alouette is a bird, and it's one of those horrible children's songs about pulling feathers out of a bird. Okay, so as usual, a lot of children's songs are really cruel. My point being, alouette has one L, so the L is pronounced. Double L's have more of a what Americans would think of, or English speakers would think of, as a Y sound. So his name is Ayette, and the reversal of his name is Etteilla. And often the last consonant or the ending of the words are thrown away a little bit. So it's not Etteilla or Etteilla, it's Etteilla. It's really usually a little truncated there at the end. That's an oversimplification, but hopefully helpful to you. So his name is Ayette and Etteilla. So that's where we're starting. Now, a little background. I'm going to be talking about these two decks, the Grande Etteilla, ou Tarot Égyptien, or the Tarot Egyptian, and yes, they call it the Egyptian Gypsies Tarot. That is using the derivation of the word as meaning from Egypt. We still don't use that word in polite company now, I think, because it has come to mean many other things, not so nice. And the Il Libro di Thoth, Tarocchi de Etteilla, and I'll talk about the derivation of these and why they're so different in a little bit. Before I go into that, let me tell you, I thought there's no point in me talking about this. From just reading the little white books, I did a little extra research. I used Annabelle Wen's Holistic Tarot, a seminal research and guidebook, if nothing else. If you have, I don't think it is the best book for learning tarot. I think it is a great book, even though she has wonderful online systems that treat it like an academic course, and I'm all about that. But I actually think it's a better book for deepening your knowledge of tarot. And as with many academic texts, the index is humongous and complete and detailed and precise, so that even if she mentions the word Etteilla in passing in a footnote, it's in the index, which was very helpful since I was only looking up references to Etteilla. Now, what she did not have much to say about Etteilla except in passing. Since she wrote this book, she is doing her own version of an Etteilla deck. I believe she's still working on it. I don't think that's out yet. She has shown pictures, isolated cards, as she's worked on them. I think it is based more on this deck, which is truer to what was available in his lifetime. However, in this book, the mentions of him are pretty transitory and in passing. And I will tell you, as somebody who's struggling with a shoulder issue and arm issues, hauling these hefty books around just from downstairs to upstairs, because upstairs is where I record. The second is Robert M. Place's book. He again has a bit about Etteilla, nothing particularly unique in what is saying about him, except he does mention that Etteilla was, I think he called him a verifiable alchemist, or a verified alchemist, and that he would be one of the first creators of a deck that considered himself an alchemist. And he mentioned that Etteilla belonged to a group of people studying alchemy. Now, whether that means that he believed in physical alchemy or spiritual alchemy, it doesn't tell us that. And usually, in my little understanding of this, usually in the 1700s, when these groups of men, and they usually were always men, getting together studying alchemy, they were not studying spiritual alchemy per se. They still believed that they could uncover this past method of transmuting other metals into gold. Most likely, though, that was about the time when the concept of spiritual alchemy was also being kind of integrated into that older vision of physical alchemy. And then finally, can I sing the praises of this book enough? Tarot and Divination Cards, a visual archive by the incredible Laetitia Barbier. I love this book. First of all, if you don't know about this book and you love tarot, this is just a great coffee table book. It is absolutely gorgeous. And then you've got Letitia's research in here too. She has a small chapter on Etteilla, and this was the most informative on Etteilla for me. And she talks a little bit about the derivation. So a lot of what I'm going to be talking about the derivation of the cards and the timing, will come from this. Ow. Those three books together weigh about 20 pounds. Those are hefty books. So, as I said, the Grande Etteilla is one of the versions that represents something that is considered truer to the deck as it would have been known during Etteilla's lifetime. Il Libro du Toff came out the year of his death, and I believe it was from Letitia's book that 3 different versions came out that year, and they were commissioned in a different source, which I cannot find where I saw this. It might have been in the Little White Book, that it said that this deck, with its art style, which I adore, that this deck was commissioned by a specific woman. Now, it could be that it was commissioned with those 3 decks that were commissioned. They were all commissioned by the publisher. It could be that she commissioned this one so that she got it first for her personal use, because that's often how publishers worked anyway in that time period. And then it was made available to other people. We don't have all of those details. But anyway, so this one with the artwork that I love, this is the deck that I've had for years and years. This is that one of those decks that was commissioned in the year of his death. So this was not a version. If he would have seen it, he would have seen it on his deathbed. So, because he died that year. Now, the way I'm going to go through the cards is I'm going to do what shout out to Cesar at 78 Puertas, who teaches Terre de Marseille. And he recommends going through the decks, learning them pips first, then court cards, then majors. That is, so I'm going to follow that in some cases because it's going to be a little easier for us to grasp some of the differences in these decks. Okay. Okay, so, and I'm going to keep this one on this side because it is the more recent. Now, remember, Etteilla maybe was not the first, but he was one of the loudest proponents of claiming that this was an ancient Egyptian system. So then it makes sense that he's incorporating these symbols in the bottom of the cards. So these were still quite simple. And we'll see some differences in the word choices. Now, I don't really know the reason, I don't know at all the reason why these go in reverse order, as do the court cards. All of the suits, they are all cards are numbered as one deck, 1 through 78. The Fool is 78. And then each one of the suits is numbered in that sequence, but they go from king down to ace. Instead of, we're more used to, I think, ace going up through king. So you can just see, first of all, this is a much more decorative deck with what I call static pips. They're just a lineup of pips. The decoration is exactly the same on every one of these, and the pips appear on the shield. Sometimes they are staggered. It seems to be the odd numbers are staggered more, but then when we get to the larger odd numbers, they're still all headed in one direction. And I'm tempted to think I have it reversed if they're not. Yeah, I probably have these reversed. Yeah. So here, the words are pretty much the same. Like here we have lies and treason, obstacle, obstacle for reversed. So that's the 10 of Wands. The 9 of Wands, delay, retard, and misfortunes or traverses, it's basically the same. The 8 of Wands, repentance. This is partie de campagne, rejoicing. So this would be like an outdoor picnic, rejoicing. And repentance, dispute intestine. I'd have to look that up, frankly, to know exactly what that French meaning is. Pourparlers, negotiations, and indecisions. Domestique, servants, and expectation. And here we have domestique and attente, which is more waiting. Opulence and procès and court case and gold. So this actually, this is, I had that reversed. Okay, so opulence and gold and court case and process. This one is a little easier to know if you have the card reversed. Not so much on this. Again, these are still what I would call static pips, but they have this other symbol at the bottom. And now, and these are just numbered all the way through. So that's card number 32, the 4 sticks. It doesn't say anything really about what this symbol is. I'm not, maybe it's in the beginning. No, I'm really not seeing that. And I did read through the books, but I wasn't looking for that specifically. So enterprises and end of worries, peine à leur fin, pains come to an end. So again, you'll see already from going through just this one suit, it's very hard to tell. There really isn't any way to tell if you have the card upside down unless you know the card. Oh, I'm wrong. It says droite, which is right side up, and reversé. So it does tell you right on the card, but that's the only way of knowing. You can't tell from the image. Okay, so then the 2 of Wands, we have sorrow and surprise, same thing. So here in the court cards, the meanings are very much the same. Birth. But see, this has birth as the reversal on the Ace of. So this looks like a misprint because obviously you'd want the Ace of Wands to be birth. And then bankruptcy and chute, which is loss, the same thing. So I'll just keep going on with these. Let me make sure these are all face up. So I'm sorry this is a little tedious, and I'm really just comparing, are the meanings the same? So domicile, home, la ville, yes, the place where you live, and colère, anger, coureur, basically the same thing. Success, victoire, business success, sincerity, now the 8 of Cups, a fille blonde, a sincere girl. Happiness, satisfaction. So similar, but not exactly the same. And this is definitely from the time period where, you know, the blonde girl is everything good. The darker you are, the bit more evil you are. That's just, or complicated, let's say. But I mean, that was just a historical notion that certainly predated the Nazi ideal. Ideas, les pensées, thoughts, projects. La passe, the past, la passé. L'avenir, the future, l'avenir, same thing. So the 6 of Cups, past. Now we think of as childhood memories from the Rider-Waite-Smith, the past and the reversed is the future. I'm going to have to change the way I do this because my arm is hurting. Heritage, inheritance, heritage, parent or relative. Parent, same thing. Boredom, ennui, same thing. Misfortune. Nouvelle connaissance, a new acquaintance. So that's different. This is misfortune when it's reversed, and this is a new acquaintance. So it's become a little more positive. The Four of Cups has become even, so that's where we see the Four of Cups becoming more positive when it's reversed. Soulagement, relief, réussite, same thing, resuscitation. Travail courant, everyday work. Expédition d'affaires, going about your daily duties, so pretty much the same thing. Very different meaning from what we think of today for the Three of Cups. Relief is really not celebration among friends. Two of Cups, l'amour, amour, and desire. So here we have these older notions that desire is potentially evil, obsession, as opposed to amour, love, being a lighter and higher thing. Ace of Cups, reception, party, table, the table, same concept. Change and changement, same thing, change. So changes when it's reversed, and party when it's there. I think what I'll do is put timestamps on the minors and the court cards and the majors so you can break this up. So the swords. Pleurs, sorrow, the Ten of Swords. Reversed, gains, winnings, advantage. The Nine of Swords. Célibat, celibacy, ecclésiastique. And suspicion, juste défiance, so suspicions and defiance. And justified defiance. Eight of Swords, criticism, accident, an incident. Oh, I've got it reversed. Okay, criticism, critique, and incidents. Expectation, espérance, hope, expectation and hope, slightly different. Wise advice, sage avis, same thing. Démarche, to take steps. I think that means steps. It says steads. Or your route, same thing. Déclaration, same statements. Perte, loss, and duel, death. So here the Five of Swords is in reverse, is a death card. Solitude, the Four of Swords, savings or economy. So it gains a financial meaning in reverse, which doesn't necessarily appear in cards today. Éloignement, detachment, éloignement, same thing. Égarement, bewilderment, same thing in reverse, the Three of Swords. Now here, interesting, this Two of Swords, tendresse, tenderness, and amitié, friendship. And reversed, it is fausseté and deceit, and le faux, falseness. So this has an extreme difference as it appears in reversals. And It's worth mentioning here that there's general agreement that Etteilla was the first to introduce a separate meaning for the reversal. Excess and extremes. Reversed, grossesse, pregnancy, grossesse. So, I did not know that the reversed sword was ever considered to be pregnancy if it's reversed. That's a new one to me. Now, it's interesting to me from an artistic standpoint. Look how geometric this is. And look at these bright colors. This is a reproduction of an older deck from before the turn of the 1800s. Or 1700s, I'm sorry. How quickly I forget. 1870 would have been his first, although this says this is from the 1870, and that's not. Letitia has it as later. So I think they're saying that his first. This is Le Grand Jeu de l'Oracle de Dames. This would also be when they're trying to sell it as a game for women to play in the parlor. What I was going to be saying about the artwork is this looks very much like much more geometric artwork that you might have seen in the 1960s or in the Art Deco period. So that's interesting to me. So home, la maison, game of chance, realization, fulfillment, effet, in effect, making something real. Today we'd probably call that manifesting. Duperie, deception. Duperie, same thing. Fille affable, pleasant girl. Fille brune. Okay, so a pleasant girl is a brunette. Avarice and usury. Money. This is the 8 of coins. Money and inquietude, anxiety. No, that was the 7. That was the 7. Oh, I'm going to go back. Since 7, 8, and 9 of coins, as many of you know, are my favorites. So this manifestation, the 9 of chords would be manifestation. The fille brune, as opposed to usury when reversed, would be completely different meaning today, where we think of it as applying yourself diligently to your work. Not that a brunette doesn't do that. And then money for the 7, which has a much more that doesn't really mean anything for us as we think of pentacles today, because they all have to do potentially with money. So the 6, entourage, surroundings, and the present surroundings, ambition, reversed. Okay, we know Rider-Waite-Smith, the 5 of coins is usually considered to be poverty, loss. Here it is amant, lover, amant or amant. Here's that dropped consonant. Male or female lover. Misconduct, incongruité, and manque d'ordre, a loss of order. The 4 of coins, cadeau, present, en présent, or obstruction or closure, something being closed off. Um, the three of coins, celebrity, fame, noble, or mediocrity, enfant, infancy. So you see the three of coins is quite different. The two of coins, embarras, difficulté, embarrassment, difficulties, or a letter. So again, here we have one of these dichotomy cards. Certainly we can balance difficulties, which is what we think of now with the two of coins, is a balancing act. But it's very different to have an embarrassment or difficulties as opposed to a letter. Um, that actually, to me, it goes along with, I think of this as being a less significant choice than the swords. But in this deck, the swords are lighter than this one. And the ace of coins, profound happiness, joie profonde, and parfait contentement, perfect contentment. Rentrée d'argent, money coming in, bourse d'argent, being filled with money. So slight differences. So okay, now that we're through all of them, the majority of them have very similar meanings. One or two were given softer meanings, which would be in keeping with a deck to be a ladies' salon game. So, and now we're going to look at the court cards. Le valet de bâton, a good stranger, originality, as opposed to both of them in reverse mean that you'll be getting news. The Knight of Wands. Here it is changes, changement, change, and here it's departure, séparation, separation, and désunion, being separated, or not being together. The Queen of Wands, virtue, femme de campagne, a woman of the countryside. Again, this would go back to the idea of the country and paysage being a good. We're in the 1800s where Rousseau's idea of the natural man is fully inculcated into society. So a woman of the countryside would be either an honest woman, a good woman. And reversed, here we have devotion and a good woman. So the Queen of Wands is always good. Le Roi de Wands, the King of Wands. Here again we have homme de campagne, a man of the countryside, and probité, probity. We don't talk about probity much today. I used to joke that probity was a big word in this time period. I did a program about the Dutch composer Isabelle de Charrière, and one of her big family things, they were always discussing her father wanted her to have more probity. And I used to, and probity is not just doing the right thing, but it's being seen to do the right thing. So and it's not about for show. It is about in what we would probably think of as integrity today. It's probity. And I used to joke at one of my workplaces that my nickname was Probitious Bee. Indulgence, a man who's good and severe, so not the same thing in reverse. The King of Wands is indulgent in this, and in this he is both kind and severe. So what we would probably think of as being firm but fair in reversed. So again, positive in both incarnations of that. In the cups, a studious boy, un garçon blond, a blonde boy. Again, we go back to these. And this is, again, this is very well where we get these ideas of the coloring that exist in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Again, this is only the late 1800s. This would probably have been available to them in some form as they were forming their ideas of the Golden Dawn deck. And reversed, the Page of Cups, affection, penchant, having affection, basically, a penchant. Penchant has a little more of an obsessive tinge to it. The Knight of Cups, arrival, arrivée, cheating and treachery, friponnière. This has more of a flippant, not taking things seriously. Okay, here you go again with the blonde. Femme irréprochable, a woman above reproach, simply a blonde woman here. So this, again, this is a deck aimed at women, and they are once again here aiming this at women and inculcating that blondes are more virtuous. A dissolute woman, a woman or a man en place. I'm not exactly sure. En place would be where they are. It's lighter. It's a lighter meaning than dissolute, but it probably means only as good as they are. Something like that, because that used to be a much more common phrase in many languages. No better than you ought to be. Again, we have probité for the King of Cups, and here we have a blonde man. Malhonnête, dishonesty, homme en place. Again, no better than he ought to be. That's not a compliment, by the way. Okay. Now we are at the swords. We have a spy, the Page of Swords. This is a definition that has come down to us. This is still a part of the definitions for the Pages of Swords in Rider-Waite-Smith's decks. Improvidence, and that is the same. So usually this spy in the Page of Swords is to be someone working on our side. Improvidence would be more somebody that you can't trust. Of the Knight of Swords, militaire, soldier, militaire, ignorance, for the reverse. So, and I think I'm allowed to say this because I have many members of my family in the military, is you can be a brave and strong soldier and still be ignorant. One of their jobs is to follow orders. And I'm not by any means saying that all soldiers are that, because I have the opposite in my family as well. So widowhood, and here we have, this is the older traditional meaning as the Queen of Swords, as a widow. A femme méchante, a malicious woman. Same thing, malicious woman. So this is the dichotomy, and this is this harder image of the Queen of Swords that has still come down to us, is that at best, she is a widow. At worst, she is malicious. I think she's often also considered to be, in some decks, she's considered to be darker of visage. And then that goes back to that same blonde and dark thing. But we have Brun coming up with the pentacles. Homme de robe. Now here we don't have probity again. Now we have a man of law, homme de robe. Or a wicked man. Now notice the shift. As we move from wands to here, we go from the King of Wands basically being good either way. The King of Swords becomes wicked when he is reversed. And he is merely a man of law. So a much harder vision of this king. Now we get to the brunettes. Again, we have a studious boy, same as I believe it was the wands. No, that was cups. That was the page of cups. So the pentacles and the cups, studious boys. And here, garçon brun. So brun could, aside from being light and dark, good and evil, brun, brunette, could also be associated with honesty or naturalness. And again, we get back to that whole idea of naturalness. Prodigality, so wastefulness, which of course, with the page of coins, that's what would be the bad side. So you're either studious or you're wasteful. And let me check something here. And as opposed to the page of cups is either studious or affected. The knight of coins, profits, utilité. Usefulness, profits, usefulness, inaction, inactivity. The Pentacles, Knight of Pentacles is often seen depicted in a moment of inaction. Here, his horse could be moving, but could just be stomping its feet, wanting to move forward more. And again, I will just say, Lady Lorelei in her book says the Knight of the Pentacles is the most boring of the knights, and I love that. That's why he's my crush boy. So, the Queen of Pentacles, rich woman, femme brune, so a brown-haired woman or brunette woman. Indecision, malcertain, not uncertainty, uncertainty, same thing. And here, négociant, businessman, and just a brunette man. So being brunette was associated with being more serious in a both good and bad way. And reversed, vicious. Both of these say vicious. So actually, the worst. The worst. He's not just bad, he's vicious. So we get this moving from wands to pentacles. We do get this trajectory from benign to bad. But that's what money does, doesn't it? It kind of heightens things. And so now we get to the majors. And this is where we're going to have a lot of differences, and I may have to refer to the book some. So obviously, this is not where we start. Here, he is seen to be 0, but he's also 78. He changes his meaning. He's folly or madness or bewilderment, but still just madness here. Now, This was a part of the Etteilla deck that I just didn't understand when I was first going through it, which is forget everything you know about the majors. Well, not everything, because you'll need some of it. But as far as the order of the majors, forget it. And what the majors have in them, we begin with the 7 days of creation. So we start with chaos, le chaos. But also, this is the card that would represent a male consultant. So, and the difference here is it just says Etteilla. And the questioner. And here we have ideal and wisdom. So we even have a meaning for this card if you don't have a male questioner. Clarity, enlightenment, éclaircissement. This is the sun card as we know it today, but here it is, number 2. And the reversal of this is fire, the reversal of this is passion. The moon card. Looking very much like the Rider-Waite moon card. So we have every reason to think she had seen these cards. But this one is the creation of plants as well. But it is, here we have discussion and instability, propos, rightness, and water. And this is the creation of the plants. Not so obvious in this deck. The sky, the star. So that's something you need to know. As le ciel, this is for the star. The star. Dépouillement, I forget what that is. Let me look that up. Tiredness, sudden illness. And then behavior or air. Air is simply, that's what we've got in reverse here. I think this is what we would normally think of as the world card. This is creation, voyage, travel, and country, property, and earth. So these also have earth, air, fire, and water. Earth, air, water, fire. So we have those represented in the majors. The zodiac signs, les astres, secrets, la nuit. Now we've already had a moon card. So this is la nuit, le jour, the day, but that's reversed at night. So we're still in the 7 days of creation here. Secrets and truths. So this is one that's negative when it's upright and positive when it's reversed. You might not get that from the prominence of the sun there. This is the day of the creation of the animals. Again, créer, they all say créer. So you know they're the days of creation in this deck, not so obvious in this deck. And here we have support or protection. Support or protection. So the meaning remains the same, but this also says les oiseaux et les poissons. So the creation of the birds and the fishes. Now again, this says Etteilla. So this is the female questioning card, la questionnante, the consultant, but it's also tenacity and progress. And I believe that is the virtue card. No, this is Eve, and it is a woman with her good and bad qualities. But this is the day of rest. Okay, so now we get to virtues. We have justice, lawmaker, justice, same thing, lawmaker. Temperance. The difference you see here is we have temperance on all three sides here, and here we have convictions and le prêtre, which would be a preacher. Let me check that. Nothing additional there. Okay, and then strength, force, la force. Again, we have the virtues we have on all three sides. Power and sovereignty. La prudence, prudence, as opposed to popularity. I hope I haven't been holding these off. I'm so sorry. And tears. No, the people. So basically popularity again. Prudence and popularity. Mariage, this would be what we consider the lover card, as opposed to a liaison, a love affair. And here it is le grand prêtre, the big preacher, mariage and union. So it's positive in both sides of this, not in this. This goes back to the older cards, which represent the lovers as a choice between good and evil. So mariage and love affair. Violence, force majeure. So here we have the devil card, le diable, if you weren't sure. Here it isn't assigned to be the devil. It's weakness in reverse, so it's still bad both ways. It is force majeure, major force, force mineure. This would be force majeure, something you can't avoid, force mineure, something that you probably have a choice about. Again, moving us more towards the modern definition of this card. So here we have what today we would think of as the magician. Here he is, le magicien or le battleur. He has both names here from different decks. Here he is sorrow or illness, if he's reversed. And he is also here. Here he is illness both ways. Maladie, yes, illness, okay. Here, we have le jugement. So here, once again, Pamela Coleman Smith. Do you think she saw this? Probably. Le jugement dernier, the last judgment. This would be recognized as an image of the last judgment without it being said. Opinion or arbitration. Here we only get judgment. Death, the death card. Lovely, love this death card. La mort, mortalité, death, or incapacity. Which would be worse? Death or incapacity? Mortalité or néant. 17. So here, The death card is number 17. So you can't depend on your number knowledge when you're using this deck because the numbers are so different. Neon to stagnation or serious illness. So it's kind of similar to this, incapacity. I always find this interesting. This is what we think of today as the Hermit card. This is the Treason card, but he's also called Le Capuchin, the Capuchin monk. So I did a little looking up as to why they would have been associated with treason. And it had to do with during the revolution, they were still holding on to their wealth. So they were considered to be part of the problem pre-French Revolution of holding on to their wealth rather than disseminating it. So this is where we get to the cards always reflect the viewpoints of the day they were created in. As much as we have a lot of card decks today that are kind of touchy-feely and kind of a little mushy and have very little negative in them, that's kind of a cultural thing that we have now. And here, this was an attitude towards the church that monks were traitors, that they were staying off to themselves and keeping the money for themselves. So we either have a traitor or falsehood. Not good. And here we have traitor and faux dévot, which is falsely, or faux dévot, falsely devout. The Tower card, misery, or prison. Le Temple foudroy. I think that kind of means the crazy temple. No, collapsing. That's what that means. Okay, the collapsing temple, misery, or prison. What we would think of today as the World card, number 10, is here as the Fortune card, number 20. Fortune, or increase, fortune, or augmentation. So, and here it is named the Wheel of Fortune. Here, less obvious. So by this time of this last printing, this has become more established as the Wheel of Fortune. This one is fascinating. This would be the one that has become the Chariot. This is the last of the majors. Procès, lawsuit, or litige, legal dispute, dissension, and arrogance. But here it says the African despot. It doesn't look very African to me. But, and we see things here. The horse is looking in opposite directions. Horses looking in opposite directions. Here it is very much of an old style chariot. Here we don't see him behind the horses. And that was probably influential in Pamela Coleman Smith's depiction, where either he's locked into that chariot or at least his legs are hidden by the front of the chariot. So hopefully, by going through them this way, it makes them more approachable for you. And certainly, as I've said before, to me it was the majors that made this fairly insurmountable. The rest of it's pretty clear, but the difference in the majors, it helps to have, if you have gone through a Minchiari deck, which has the virtues in it, because then you can see the virtues in this as being part of that trajectory. You have to let go of any numbering system that you think you know, because this is different as far as the majors go. But they're both very good about telling you what the card is in the major as well. So I hope this little go through has helped you. I adore the artwork of this deck. I just adore it. I truly, I said, I got this very inexpensively, Walmart online, but they probably have it in the store as well. Very inexpensive if you just want to try out an Etteilla deck, or if you're drawn to the kind of geometric patterns. And I like that as well. This reminds me a little bit of the elemental tarot that I have, because it has bright colors and much more geometric shapes. And this deck may have been influential in the formation of that deck, because I think that's from the 70s, that elemental tarot that I have. This is, you know me and my history. I like this. And once you understand, see here they tell you these are the days of creation. Once you understand that that's what these are representing, you can read that. You can take that as a grounding and then read it in any way that's meaningful to you. I will point out differences in the guidebook. I probably should take a minute. Let me set this aside, because these are pretty clear the way they're labeled. This one, well, Folie is a 78th card, so it's not there. Chaos. Hiram's Freemasonry. The Order of the Mopses. The Swimming Pool. The Gospel. The Sky. The Snake. Eve. Solomon. The Angel of the Apocalypse. David. Moses. The High Priest. Now, here we have, this is called the High Priest, but this is what we would call the Lover's card today. Evil Force. Aaron. The Last Judgment. Death. Judas. Think how much this card has changed in its meaning. The Capitol. Nebuchadnezzar. Rehoboam. Those are the titles in the Grand Etteilla of these cards. Personally, I would find those absolutely unuseful. Even if I wanted to read them with a biblical context, I would find it too difficult to try to memorize those additional names. Now, if I did want to work with that, I might write those names on the side. Because if you are going to reference that biblical meaning at all in any way, it would make sense to have it on the card. I mean, why is it not on the card if that's truly what this card is called? There are questions. So, I hope you've enjoyed. Oh, this comes in. Oh, interesting. Interesting that this calls him the alchemist. And card number 77 The ace of coins is the golden sun. So it gives you, see again, I would write, if you want to work with their titles, the titles that have been given to these cards, you'd need to write them in because they're not there. And they do, the 9 sequins, the 8 ducats, the 7 florins, the 5 ounces, the 4 shields, the 3 shields, the 2 denarius, they would have maybe a little less meaning. But those are the titles. In the Grand Etteilla, there are other titles given to them. This is Kara from Kara Tarot. I hope, as I said, I hope this has been useful to you and that it helps you figure out if this is a land you want to venture into of the whole world of Etteilla, or if you're just perfectly content in the world of RWS and Thoth. And the Liber de Thoth means nothing about what we think of as Thoth today, except that was his trying to package and sell it as having been an Egyptian mystery, because that was really big back then. This is Kara. Thanks again. Enjoy.